Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 318 of the Prancing Pony podcast where, well, it's a good thing the Eagles like us.
Well, hopefully they won't find us to be too great a burden. Folks, I'm Sara Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan, and I'm here with the man of the West, who might actually be made of stone, Alan Sisto.
Well, let's put it this way, I won't be out flying any wind anytime soon. Folks, join us as the Realm of Sauron is ended in the first of our 2 episodes on the Field of Cormallen, the 4th chapter in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings.
No matter how you arrive, folks, you are all welcome here in the common room. At the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and plenty of bad jokes along the way.
Can you hear her disappointment already? We love deep dives into the lore, discussing our favorite themes, and a whole lot more.
But we try to keep it light and fun, just like a couple of friends chatting at the pub, right? Except when we disagree about the pronunciation of herb.
Herb?
Herb. And we're glad you joined us.
We are indeed. For the hour is getting late. Yeah. We think you'll be glad you joined as well, folks. Now, before we get into tonight's reading, let's explore the names of everyone's favorite not a taxi service in fan favorite Philology Fair.
So when the Eagles arrive early in this episode, we'll read, "There came Gwaihir the Windlord, and Landroval his brother, greatest of all the Eagles of the North, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor, along with all their feathered brethren, one of whom we'll find is named Meneldor." And I thought it might be good to take a look at the names of Manwë's mighty minions. And don't blame me for that, folks. That alliteration is all Alan's fault.
Yeah, I had a feeling you might throw me under the bus for that. It is my fault. I take all the blame.
Good. Let's start with Thorondor, as he is the original king of eagles. And the Silmarillion tells us that he was the mightiest of all birds that have ever been, whose outstretched wings spanned 30 fathoms.
30 fathoms. Now, look, before we get to his name, and we will, I promise, can we just point out how crazy big that is? 30 fathoms. This is not like, just a little bigger than a bird. This is unbelievably massive. Okay, a fathom is 6 feet, so a little over 1.8 meters. We're talking about a 180-foot wingspan. That's 55
huge.
Meters across. Now, I looked some stuff up. I did research. It's what I do. In the primary world, the bird with the largest wingspan currently is the wandering albatross. It's got a wingspan of about 12 feet, right? 3.5, 4 meters, somewhere in that range. Fossil records tell us that there was an extinct species of bird, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, called the Pelagornis sandersi, had a wingspan of 24 feet, almost 7.5 meters. Okay, that's big. It's not 180 feet. It's still 24 feet, and that would be a big, big bird. So what about dinosaurs? Maybe we can get a dinosaur that's that big, right? There was a species of the Quetzalcoatlus. I can't believe I pronounced that okay. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't.
Oh, round of applause in the background here.
There we go. It had a wingspan of 36 feet. Okay, so we go from 12 feet to 24 feet to 36 feet. So it's 11 meters. To get to 180 feet, though, you have to stop talking about birds and dinosaurs and start talking about jumbo jets. Thorondor's wingspan was just 5 meters shy of the same wingspan of an Airbus A330 or Boeing 787. I mean, it's huge. So we're talking about really, 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 really massive. And you could sort of extrapolate the length of the bird from that because the wingspan of a bird is typically 1.5 to 2 times its body length. So if that same ratio holds, you're talking about Thorondor being anywhere from 90 to 120 feet long.
That's insane.
27 to 36 meters. Now, it's not the same length as those jumbo jets. It's a lot shorter. But man, that is absolutely gigantic and terrifying. But this is a philology fair, not a whatever this almost turned into. So I guess we should probably look at his name. Earlier, we said that Thorondor was the original king of eagles. That's literally what his name means in Sindarin. It's made up of Thoron, meaning eagle, and a lenited or softened form of the tor suffix, the tor suffix, which got mutated to door. And we see that same door ending in names like Galdor, the Lord of Dorloman, or Gildor Inglorian. Yes, it's more frequent as land in Gondor, Eriador, and all of that, but it does also mean king or lord. The Thoron element is something we see in a couple of names that you should be familiar with by now. Aragorn's father, Arathorn, and then, of course, Aragorn's own nom de plume, Thorongil, Eagle of the Star.
Mm-hmm. In the appendix to the Silmarillion, we learn that the Quenya cognate is Sorontar. Christopher Tolkien explains that this Quenya form for eagle is perhaps present in the constellation name Soronume.
Ooh,
right?
I like that.
So, yeah. Moving on to the current Lord of the Eagles, the star of today's show is Gwaihir. His name comes from the Sindarin element Gwayu, meaning wind, and Hir, meaning Lord. It sounds really Welsh, doesn't it? I love that.
It does. The Gwayu especially.
Right? Yeah. Especially with all the W sounds in there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have any other examples of that Gwai element, but the Hir one is something we do see in a few places. The Rohirrim are masters of horses.
That's right.
And the Gonhirim are the masters of stone. So it kind of makes sense that he's the Wind Lord, right?
Yeah, that's true. One other name I should say that has that element is Baron's father, Barahir, right? Same H-I-R, and his name means fierce lord. So let's go ahead and move on to Landroval. Not only is that the name of Gwaihir's brother, it's also the name of the Lord of the Rings online server where I play and where the PPP has its kinship, but I digress.
Already?
Landroval is Sindarin. Of course it's already. I digressed about the size of the bird and started bringing in A380s and, or A330s and Boeing 787s. I mean, that's what I do. But yeah, it's the name of the server where the PPP has its Lotro kinship. Definitely shout out to those of you who play Lotro. Jump on that server and look for us. Landroval is Sindarin for broad-winged, and it contains an element Roval, which we can find in Words and Phrases, which is in Parma El Delamberon 17, where it is said to mean wing. That's literally all we have on his name. But I want to say something else. We'll get to it when we get to the Eagles later this episode. So, Sara, what about Meneldor, or Meneldor, actually, now that I'm remembering my pronunciation rules?
Okay, let's start with the obvious. The suffix dor is the same as that in Thorondor's name. It's a lenited form of the tor suffix, and it means king. Yep. Menel is Sindarin, and Quenya, actually, for the heavens, the firmament, the sky. So Menel itself is made up of men, meaning towards, and El, meaning star. And we see the Menel element in names like Armenelos and the Menel Tarma, which means the pillar of heaven.
That's right. And it also makes an appearance in the hymn A Elbereth Gilthoniel in the line O Menel Aglar Elenath, which means from the glories of the star host of heaven.
Well, if we're diving that deep, it also shows up in Sam's face-off with Shelob. He grabs the file and is said to cry out in a language which he did not know, A Elbereth Gilthoniel O Menel Palandiriel, where that line means from heaven gazing afar.
I love that.
All right, we're done showing off our Sindarin. Meneldor, king of the heavens. Meneldor is king of the heavens or king of the sky.
Though I have to say, given the way he's introduced in the text, is basically just one of the vassals of the Eagles, young and swift. He's not the king of anything yet. I mean, that's kind of the way I read it. But anyway, we'll leave the question of the king of the Eagles for later. For now, Sara, would you start us out with tonight's first chapter reading?
Definitely. Can't wait for this. All right. The Field of Cormallen. You know, it would be Cormallen in Welsh. I'm digressing.
You're right. Cormallen?
All about the hills, the hosts of Mordor raged. The captains of the west were foundering in a gathering sea. The sun gleamed red, and under the wings of the Nazgul the shadows of death fell dark upon the earth. Aragorn stood beneath his banner, silent and stern, as one lost in thought of things long past or far away. But his eyes gleamed like stars that shine the brighter as the night deepens. Upon the hilltop stood Gandalf, and he was white and cold, and no shadow fell on him. The onslaught of Mordor broke like a wave on the beleaguered hills, voices roaring like a tide amid the wreck and crash of arms. As if to his eyes some sudden vision had been given, Gandalf stirred, and he turned, looking back north where the skies were pale and clear. Then he lifted up his hands and cried in a loud voice ringing above the din, "The eagles are coming!" And many voices answered, crying, "The eagles are coming! The eagles are coming!" The hosts of Mordor looked up and wondered what this sign might mean. There came Gwaihir the Windlord, and Landroval his brother, greatest of all the eagles of the north, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor, who built his eyries in the inaccessible peaks of the encircling mountains when Middle-earth was young. Behind them in long, swift lines came all their vassals from the northern mountains, speeding on a gathering wind. Straight down upon the Nazgul they bore, stooping suddenly out of the high airs, and the rush of their wide wings as they passed over was like a gale. But the Nazgul turned and fled, and vanished into Mordor's shadows, hearing a sudden terrible call out of the dark tower. And even at that moment all the host of Mordor trembled. Doubt clutched their hearts, their laughter failed, their hands shook, and their limbs were loosed. The power that drove them on and filled them with hate and fury was wavering. Its will was removed from them. And now, looking in the eyes of their enemies, they saw a deadly light, and were afraid. Then all the captains of the West cried aloud, for their hearts were filled with a new hope in the midst of darkness. Out from the beleaguered hills, knights of Gondor, riders of Rohan, Dunedain of the North, close serried companies, drove against their wavering foes, piercing the press with the thrust of bitter spears. But Gandalf lifted up his arms and called once more in a clear voice, "Stand, men of the West, stand and wait. This is the hour of doom."
Oh man, I'm getting chills just hearing that. It is the hour of doom, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is the time. It's been a while, right? 3 full chapters and 7 months in podcast time, but we are back with the Captains of the West at the Black Gate. And at first, it is not looking good.
Right.
Yeah, we return to these metaphors of water, and I really want to call everybody's attention to these things. It's pretty amazing. If we go back to the chapter The Black Gate opens, we see several there. First, the great doors of the Black Gate swung back wide. Out of it streamed a great host as swiftly as swirling waters when a sluice is lifted.
Right. Then it was down from the hills on either side of the Morannon poured orcs innumerable.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we're told that the men of the West would soon be trapped, that forces 10 times and more than 10 times their match would ring them in a sea of enemies.
Yep.
They kept coming too. When the hill trolls arrived, we read, like a storm they broke upon the line of the men of Gondor.
And Tolkien gets right back into that metaphor here with Aragorn, Gandalf, and the rest foundering in a gathering sea. And then we read about the onslaught of Mordor broke like a wave on the beleaguered hills, voices roaring like a tide amid the wreck and crash of arms. Wow. It's so many chapters later, and yet he comes back to that exact identical tone and those same exact metaphors. So powerful.
And he can really sort out a good image, can't he?
He really can. So many evocative phrases. This chapter alone is filled with them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, while the odds are slim, it was never about a victory, right?
No.
Success would be measured in giving time to Frodo and Sam to complete their quest. And we're really close now.
Oh, we sure are. Aragorn and Gandalf are on their hill ready to fight, right? Aragorn's banner, that's the tree and stars, that one's up. He's accompanied, as a reminder, because we don't hear that in this chapter, but going back to the Black Gate opens, he's accompanied by Elladan and Elrohir, as well as the Grey Company, while Éomer, with his white horse banner, and Imrahil with his silver swan banner, and their best men are over on the other hill.
You're right. But beginning of this chapter, Aragorn is all business.
Yeah.
And the text does give us some clues as to what's on his mind, and it's not his imminent demise.
I hope not.
Right. So the quote there is he's looking to something long past or far away.
I've got to ask, what do you think he's thinking about? Long past or far away?
Well, let's think about all of the weight of history that Aragorn is carrying with him into this moment. I mean, he is almost the end, I suppose, of the line of kings that go, or that trace their line all the way back to Elros. Right?
Yeah.
He's carrying the burden of the past with him, but also looking to the future. He's bringing the future with him to Gondor.
Yeah.
Gondor that didn't really have one until he arrives. And I think that this has got to do with him just taking a moment to understand where he is in that tide of history, if you like, and gathering himself for this moment. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. I think the bloodline, certainly, thinking back maybe to the Last Alliance and, Isildur and the Ring and all of this and how, it's here it is full circle. What he does here is going to determine whether there's enough time to destroy the Ring that should have been destroyed by Isildur all those, centuries ago. I think the far away part might be, though, a reference to Arwen. I think his thoughts are maybe with Arwen in Imladris. I think he's thinking about Rivendell. He's thinking about where his intended is. And he knows that the only way he's going to see her again is not just if he survives, but if he is indeed victorious, if he gives time to Frodo and Frodo is able to get the ring destroyed and defeat Sauron, then and only then can he become the king of the united Gondor and Arnor and then marry Arwen. So,
yes, he can't claim any of that until this job is done.
And this is a heck of a job. Yeah.
It's a bit of a job. Yeah.
It really is. Now, Gandalf, on the other hand, he's not long past or far away in his mind. He is as uncloaked as he gets. And I love this. It is superpower mode right now, seemingly untouched and even untouchable in some respects by the shadow of the Nazgul. But then Gandalf notices something, and the text says, as if some sudden vision had been given. I like that. And he turns to the north.
Right. And it would be really easy to think that in this moment he sensed Frodo putting on the ring. I mean, after all, he seemed to be aware of that when Frodo was at Amon Hen.
Correct.
But of course, what he has noticed is the well-timed arrival of some super powerful friends.
Yeah.
The eagles are coming.
Indeed. And his cry, of course, triggers the response of many of the men. The eagles are coming. And this, again, was the very, very moment at the end of the Black Gate opens when Pippin passed out at the end of last season on the podcast. And it's not going to be until much later in this chapter, next week's episode, when we learn that Pippin survived.
And indeed, here they are. We talked about their names in this week's intro. Gwaihir and Landroval are named in this moment. But we also mentioned the name of Meneldor, since we'll see him involved shortly.
Exactly. He's not named here, but he'll be named in just a moment. We even get a reference to the King of Eagles himself, Thorondor, the one who helped Fingon rescue Maedhros, the guy who retrieved Fingolfin's body and gave Morgoth those eternal scars. I mean, he's just, that's the guy right there.
Right. Yes. Top eagle, I suppose.
No doubt.
Yeah. And it's not just Landroval and Gwaihir. It's long, swift lines of eagles, all coming faster than the wind, sweeping down onto the Nazgul. This must be one heck of a sight, right?
Can you imagine? I mean, dozens of these gigantic birds. I mean, I'm assuming that not all of them have the massive wingspan of Thorondor, but even if we're talking about 50-60% of that size, we're still talking massive. But, the Nazgul, I'm sure they want to get a tangle going, but they have other fish to fry or hobbits to roast, as the case may be. They get that emergency 911 call from Sauron, and it is time to head back at top speed.
Right. And as you and Matt talked about last chapter, as Sauron's full attention turns to Mount Doom and Frodo's claim of the ring, and of course the existential threat to the ring and to Sauron, his forces are impacted by the shift in direction of his will, and we see all the hosts of Mordor in fear and doubt.
And I have to wonder, and I think we'll get some clues to this later, would that same fear and doubt impact the Southrons and the Easterlings? That is to say, the allied forces of Mordor as opposed to just the hosts of Mordor. But we'll get more of that later. The power that drives them, that of course is Sauron, isn't animating these creatures. This isn't like when Aule created the dwarves and they basically froze when his mind wasn't thinking of them, and Iluvatar's like, they're going to be automatons. They're only going to move when you will them to move. This is not that, because that's not the ability that Sauron has. But his power does motivate them, right? It fills them with hate and fury. He's fed them over the years and centuries with the hatred of men and of the West. And without that motivation, they're terrified of the power of their enemies, and rightly so, even though they outnumber them more than 10-1. Right.
I mean, if you feel the energy of Sauron filling you as you're facing these enemies and you're ready to go, and then suddenly that goes.
Huge motivational force gone.
Right.
Yeah. Why am I here now? Why do I want to face off against these guys? That one up there on the top of the hill looks really scary, and that's a big sword. I'm not interested.
And now there's these big birds coming. What's up with that?
Seriously. Oh man, they're going to pick me up and hurl me across the, not a good thing. So the impact of Sauron's will on different creatures. Do we want to sort of, think through a little bit? Part of me wants to think that the less intelligent the creature naturally, the more it would have to lean on Sauron's will for motivation. So maybe like the trolls would be even less motivated than the orcs, and the orcs would be less motivated than the men. I don't know. I know I'm kind of pulling that out of my hat, but I'm trying to figure out at what point does the character or creature's inherent intelligence, inherent skills, inherent, I don't know, nature come into play?
That's a really interesting question. It's one I hadn't considered before, actually. I suppose with the least intelligent creatures, let's pick trolls. Sorry, trolls.
Well, yeah, and I may be wrong. Maybe the trolls are actually playing chess in their spare time. I don't know.
Who knows, right? That's totally possible. But if we're talking about creatures that probably don't have a whole lot of thinking process of their own,
right,
having the will of Sauron is like pressing the go button, right?
Yeah.
That's it. They do what
it's a
they
toggle
are.
Switch.
Yeah, exactly. They do what they are told to do because that's really their only purpose, and they don't have any thoughts outside of that. Now, we know that orcs do have thoughts outside of that.
They do, right. We see those conversations like with Shagrat and Gorbag, for instance, or the ones in the Three Hunters chase, yeah.
Right. So the will of Sauron is also keeping them in line. As well as motivating them. Perhaps the will of Sauron has to act more on the orcs because it has to direct them, motivate them, and keep them in line. Because if you are a creature that is capable of independent thought, which we know orcs are,
right?
If you suddenly think, you know what, I don't want to be here. I'm in this picture and I don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
What's stopping the orcs from saying, actually, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to go? The only thing that's stopping that is the will of Sauron keeping them in place, facing forward and doing as they're told. Remove that will of Sauron, even for a bit, and they're looking around going, there must be an exit here somewhere.
Yeah, how do I get out of here? I don't need to be here.
Yeah, whereas the trolls are looking around going, who do I hit next? Right?
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because for them, the will of Sauron is less of a restraining force like it is for the orcs, and more of a purely motivational force. But at the same time, the troll's function is pretty limited. He's not going to go set up camp somewhere and,
So maybe it doesn't take too much injection of Sauron will TM to get the trolls doing what they need to do, because that's pretty much it for a troll.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It's like Hulk smash. Yeah. I suppose, right?
So I guess then at the other end of that scale is men.
Yes.
And he doesn't seem to have men that are part of the hosts of Mordor, so to speak. It seems like men, for the most part, are his allied forces, the Southrons, the Easterlings.
So you have to offer them a reward, a reason to be there.
Even if the reason to be there is, okay, I will not destroy your hometown.
Right. So that's a reward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Or, of course, you tell the leaders of the Southrons, you will get more land, we will give you more of this, that, the other. It's a more of a reward-based will.
Yeah.
Again, the more a creature can think independently, the more you have to exact your will on them.
Yeah.
To make them do what you want them to do. That's just the way I think about it anyway.
I think you're right, yeah. I mean, and I think the other thing, and we'll see this later, is that there's such an inherent hatred on the part of some of these Southrons and Easterlings towards the men of Gondor. They don't need Sauron's will to drive them to do this. And that's why we'll see so many of them end up fighting. It's just an interesting thought. Like, what happens, right? They're not dropping dead like marionettes with their strings cut.
Right. Yep.
And that's really important to keep in mind.
Yep. But the will of Sauron is removed and they immediately look for the exit.
No, yeah. I would be.
Right.
Peace out, man. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And all of this has changed the momentum on the battlefield.
Oh, yes, definitely.
The men are encouraged, given hope here in what is likely the darkest place any of them have been, except, of course, for Aragorn and Gandalf and maybe Legolas and Gimli, if we include the Pass of the Dead.
That's fair, yeah.
Right, so think about it. The Eagles arrive, the Nazgul have fled, the enemy is now scared.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be pretty motivational for this tiny, in comparison, host of humans. And now they can march out on the offense. They're crowded tightly together and taking the fight to the orcs with their spears.
That's right. Crowded close together. By the way, folks, that is what close-serried means. The word comes from French serre, meaning close or compact. And that actually dates back to the 12th century. It goes all the way back to a Latin noun, serra, meaning a bolt or a bar or a crossbar. So that's what we're talking about. All tight in there. They're just really bunched up as one compact force.
Think Roman armies and the way in
Yeah.
which they marched absolutely side by side, touching.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Gandalf knows something is up, right? So just like he was aware that the eagles were coming, he is aware of what's going on 80 miles away at Mount Doom.
That's right. I mean, remember, Gandalf is himself a ring bearer. He uses Narya to, in the words of Círdan when he gave him the ring, rekindle hearts in a world that grows chill. So he knows when somebody puts on the One Ring, especially to claim it as their own. But he knew another time, as we alluded to earlier, and we're going to take you to that point. On Amon Hen, Frodo puts on the ring. He feels the eye searching for him, and then we read, he heard himself crying out, "Never, never." Or was it, "Verily, I come to you"? He could not tell. Then as a flash from some other point of power, there came to his mind another thought. Take it off, fool, take it off, take off the ring.
And in case the fool epithet didn't give it away, that really was Gandalf.
Yeah, exactly.
In The White Rider, Gandalf is catching up with the three hunters, and he says that the ring now has passed beyond my help, or the help of any of the company that set out from Rivendell. Very nearly it was revealed to the enemy, but it escaped. I had some part in that, for I sat in a high place, and I strove with the dark tower, and the shadow passed. Then I was weary, very weary, and I walked long in dark thought. Then you know about Frodo, said Gimli. How do things go with him? I cannot say. He was saved from a great peril, but many lie before him still. I mean, yeah. I think this is a wonderful piece of text, actually, that's easily overlooked.
Yeah.
Because, when Frodo was putting the One Ring on at Amon Hen, everybody thought Gandalf was dead.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's not. But this idea of him, I sat in a high place.
That's right.
Right? And I strove with the dark tower. And that's just incredible that Gandalf has become, with a capital B, so much more since the battle with the Balrog. Yep. He's become so much greater. And actually here, of course, at this moment when the eagles are coming, I think he's at the apex of his power.
Yeah, absolutely. This is truly, we said it earlier kind of jokingly, Gandalf uncloaked, but this is Gandalf 2.0 at his very best. And he's ready because, in all honesty, let's be clear, if Frodo doesn't destroy the ring, everybody here dies, even Gandalf. Yeah, Gandalf might be the last to go, but he's going to go. There's no way that he can survive against those forces if Frodo doesn't destroy the ring. So, yeah. So, of course, Gandalf senses what's happening, right? All the more so because the power of the ring is so amplified at the cracks of Mount Doom. So he's even more likely to sense that. So he tells them all to wait. That great line, stand, men of the West. I mean, okay, we see that given to Aragorn, slightly different in the films, but here it's Gandalf, and he's reminding them this is the hour of doom. This is the hour of fate. This is when we'll find out whether all of this was worth it. And we'll find out if all of this is worth it after the break. Now, folks, we'll get back to the hour of doom. You're still standing up, right? In just a moment. But first, we want to remind you that there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
Oh, yeah. The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page to get some news and the new episode releases, but you're really going to want to join the group to get involved in some great discussions.
Or, if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at Prancing Pony Pod.
That's right. Now, if you want daily Tolkien content, please check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and on all your favorite podcast apps. It's my new short format daily show with everything from Tolkien Tuesday to Fandom Friday. So be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media.
For now, though, let's get back to the Hour of Doom. Not the best time for a break, really, Alan?
Yeah, that's fair.
So can you pick up where I left off?
I will. Poor Gandalf's been waiting all this whole time. All right. And even as he spoke, the earth rocked beneath their feet. Then, rising swiftly up, far above the towers of the Black Gate, high above the mountains, a vast soaring darkness sprang into the sky, flickering with fire. The earth groaned and quaked. The towers of the Teeth swayed, tottered, and fell down. The mighty rampart crumbled. The Black Gate was hurled in ruin, and from far away, now dim, now growing, now mounting to the clouds, there came a drumming rumble, a roar, a long, echoing roll of ruinous noise. "The realm of Sauron is ended," said Gandalf. "The ring-bearer has fulfilled his quest." And as the captains gazed south to the land of Mordor, it seemed to them that, black against the pall of cloud, there rose a huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning-crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous it reared above the world and stretched out towards them a vast, threatening hand, terrible but impotent. For even as it leaned over them, a great wind took it, and it was all blown away and passed, and then a hush fell. The captains bowed their heads, and when they looked up again, behold, their enemies were flying, and the power of Mordor was scattering like dust in the wind. As when death smites the swollen brooding thing that inhabits their crawling hill and holds them all in sway, ants will wander witless and purposeless, and then feebly die. So the creatures of Sauron, orc or troll or beast spell-enslaved, ran hither and thither mindless, and some slew themselves, or cast themselves in pits, or fled wailing back to hide in holes and dark, lightless places far from hope. Ha 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 ha! The realm of Sauron is ended.
Right.
Man.
He does do that very quickly, doesn't
he? Yeah.
I mean, this is a huge thing that's just happened. He's like, yeah, it's done. Ringbearer's done his job. Let's go home.
As we've said on the show, right? Blink and you miss it. Yeah, the realm of Sauron's ended. We're done, boys. Let's go. Yeah. Man.
So even as Gandalf is telling the soldiers to hold on a bit, things are happening.
That's right.
And they're not just happening at Mount Doom, 80 miles away, or at Barad-dûr, which is 100 miles away.
Right.
They're happening right here at the Black Gate.
That's right. At first, we see what must be the eruption of Mount Doom, right? The vast, soaring darkness flickering with fire. And that, of course, is the kind of thing we'd expect from a volcanic eruption. Commensurate with that, we get the start of an earthquake, right? It takes down the towers of the Teeth, Narchast and Carchast.
And not only do the towers fall, but the wall itself crumbles and the gate is ruined. Yeah. And then the noise hits them. The rumble, the roar, and the roll of ruinous alliteration.
I love that. I mean, this whole passage is filled with that, but that one in particular, the rumble, the roar, the roll, just lovely. Is this the sound of the eruption that they're hearing, or is it the sound of the collapse of Barad-dûr? Last chapter, Frodo and Sam, obviously they're right there at the volcano as it's erupting, but the tower's collapse is also a huge sound. In fact, they hear it, and it's described this way. And then at last, over the miles between, there came a rumble, rising to a deafening crash and roar. I don't know. One or the other, or both, maybe? I mean, because they're farther away, so maybe the sound is such that they're getting both the eruption and the collapse. I don't know if it matters. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it matters in that everything is collapsing. And so they are, the whole idea is that Mordor has come to ruin. And so you have the volcanic eruption, you have the earthquakes, you have the fall of the tower. It's all happening. And I think it's just like almost an overwhelming surround sound of everything coming to like its destruction, its ultimate destruction.
Yeah.
So for me, I've never thought there was really any differentiation. It's just kind of feeling the sound of all of this happening.
Yeah.
Because it's all of it, I think you feel the huge moment that this is when you've got everything just being destroyed.
That's fair. Yep. Works for me. So Gandalf makes his announcement, but let's take a look at this, right? Sauron's realm is over, but at the same time, really what Gandalf is doing is he's announcing his retirement. right? This was his job. This was the reason he showed up in Middle-earth almost 2,000 years before. So he's done. And then second, and this is interesting, I find this really interesting. He says that Frodo has fulfilled his quest, right? The ring bearer has fulfilled his quest. Has he? Gandalf is aware that the ring has been destroyed. He, of course, would know that. He would sense that. But he can't know, or at least I don't think he can. Maybe you have a different opinion here, but the way in which the quest was fulfilled, right? Frodo didn't really succeed. He didn't throw it into the fire. We all know what happened, and it was all, Gollum and all of those interacting things about pity and everything. The quest succeeded, but Frodo didn't. Gandalf doesn't know that. He says Frodo has succeeded. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that comes into that whole discussion about, does Frodo fail? And yes, of course, Frodo fails.
Yeah, Tolkien's made that very clear. Anybody would have failed.
Right, because it's actually an impossible task.
That's correct. It is an impossible task.
But what was the quest that was given to Frodo? The quest was to take the ring to Mount Doom.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right?
And he did fulfill that quest.
Did get that part done.
The fact that the ring has gone into the fire is almost like, yay, bonus. I don't think Gandalf can know that it's Gollum has actually gone into the fire with the ring. But at this point, that doesn't really matter, does it?
The quest has succeeded. That's what matters.
The quest has succeeded. And that's all that's really important, I think, to Gandalf here. And then, of course, we see the impotence of Sauron after his defeat, after the destruction of the One Ring, just as Gandalf said would happen.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a terrifying cloud consuming the whole sky. It's totally opaque, filled with lightning, and it rises up and up, stretching out what looks like a threatening hand. But it's ultimately completely powerless.
That's right.
Right? A wind dissipates the cloud, and it just passes in silence.
Poof. Yeah. I honestly can't help but think, and I think we're supposed to think of this very similar result, though on a much smaller scale, when it comes to Saruman's end in several chapters. And we'll read from that real quick. It says, "To the dismay of those that stood by, about the body of Saruman a gray mist gathered, and rising slowly to a great height, like smoke from a fire, as a pale shrouded figure it loomed over the hill. For a moment it wavered, looking to the west, but out of the west came a cold wind, and it bent away, and with a sigh dissolved into nothing."
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the wonderful things about having that parallel between the two, and I know you'll talk about it when you get to that chapter.
Oh, we will. I can guarantee you that.
I'm sure you will. But the wonderful thing about having that parallel is that in Saruman, you had a figure who wanted ultimate power.
Yeah.
He tried to take it for himself. And his demise here, which is like a pathetic poof compared to Sauron's, it just shows you how, in comparison to Sauron, Saruman became nothing.
He really was. I mean, we even get a glimpse of that early on when we're told that Orthanc is like a child's toy in comparison to Barad-dûr. It's the same sort of thing, a poor imitation, And Saruman is basically a poor imitation of Sauron.
Right.
Yeah.
And with all the times that we've talked about the wind, I can't help but see another Manwë moment here.
Oh yeah.
We talked about the wind blowing the fleet up the Anduin just in time, the wind that Merry noticed before the charge of the Rohirrim, the wind that was doing battle in the airs over Mordor, even the winds that came through the houses of healing.
That's right, yeah.
And here, this strikes me as a Manwë moment. And it's even associated, at least chronologically, with the arrival of the eagles.
Excellent point. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Manwë in charge of the airs, we think that, with the battle in the skies above Mordor that Sam witnesses in the Land of Shadow chapter and all of that. So what actually happened to Sauron here, right? Of the Rings of Power in the Third Age tells us that when the Great Ring of Power was unmade and its evil consumed, Sauron failed, and he was utterly vanquished and passed away like a shadow of malice.
Right. And Gandalf told us a few chapters ago what would happen. Right. In the last debate, he said that if the One Ring is destroyed, then he will fall, and his fall will be so low that none can foresee his arising ever again. For he will lose the best part of the strength that was native to him in his beginning, and all that was made or begun with that power will crumble, and he will be maimed forever. becoming a mere spirit of malice that gnaws itself in the shadows, but cannot grow or take shape. I love that bit about gnawing itself in the shadows. Think of Ungoliant eating herself, right? Yeah. Sauron, I've said this in a few conferences and things like that. Sauron is the ultimate consumer, right? He'll eat us, eat all the world, right? He even has the towers of the teeth. And he employs the mouth of Sauron. But here he consumes himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also is to tell us that he can't do anything to anybody else, right?
Yeah.
He is filled with malice. He is nothing but malice in spirit form, but he has no ability to do anything outside of gnawing himself. He can't harm you. He's totally powerless. Tolkien himself explains this best, I think, in letter number 131 to Milton Waldman. So everybody
your favorite.
The drinking game at home needs to take a sip. He says there that in order for Sauron to have the power to essentially rule Middle-earth in the Second Age, quote, he had been obliged to let a great part of his own inherent power, a frequent and very significant motive in myth and fairy story, pass into the One Ring. While he wore it, his power on Earth was actually enhanced. But even if he did not wear it, that power existed and was in rapport with himself. He was not diminished. Interesting.
Yeah, sure. If someone else sufficiently strong and heroic came along and took the ring, they could challenge Sauron, become master of all that he had learned or done since the making of the One Ring, and so overthrow him and usurp his place. But Tolkien explains that there was one other weakness.
Yeah.
He says, if the One Ring was actually unmade, annihilated, then its power would be dissolved. Sauron's own being would be diminished to vanishing point, and he would be reduced to a shadow, a mere memory of malicious will. But that he never contemplated or feared.
Maybe he should have.
Maybe he should have, yes. Failing to plan ahead.
Exactly. Fail to plan to fail. What I've noticed when we look at all of these different sources, letter 131, what Gandalf says in the last debate, and even the small text from Otrapata of the Rings of Power in the Third Age, we get really, really similar passages. Utterly vanquished, shadow or spirit of malice or of malicious will. I mean, they're all one and the same. Unable to take shape or unable to have any power in the world. It's all part and parcel. I mean, he's done. He's absolutely done. And the men of the West, they're in awe at this moment. They're absorbing this moment that they thought would probably never come. And when they look up, they see their enemies, or at least most of them, running away.
Right. I think this man of the West is in awe as well, by the sound of it.
I am. This is such a moment.
It is. It really is.
Wow.
And the text describes them the way we might describe a colony of ants. Right?
Yes.
When their queen is destroyed, the hive mind becomes aimless and dies.
Yeah.
And going back to letter 131, Tolkien restates this. He says that the forces of Sauron, bereft, like termites with the dead queen, of all direction and will, fly and disintegrate.
Yeah.
Definitely the same picture.
Definitely.
And right after that, he adds, to sort of put a cap on our last point, that the vast figure of Sauron rears up, terrible but impotent as it passes away on the wind, a shadow that shall never again take substance.
Wow. I mean, that may be from 131, but it really is also right out of this passage. And speaking of 131, we're going to come back to that letter again next week when the hobbits are honored.
No, really? We'll come back to letter 131?
I know, really?
Shocked,
Shocker,
I tell you.
I'm sure. But for now, let's get back to this moment. The forces of Sauron are melting away. And like I was telling everybody earlier, they're not dropping like marionettes whose strings are cut, right? They just don't have any purpose now. They don't have any direction or any guidance. And so we see different reactions. Some of them are running around randomly. Some are purposefully turning tail and running, I'm out of here. Others hurl themselves into chasms in the ground, and some take their own lives.
Right. Yeah. But in the bit we had to skip, we read about the men. Those who were not powered by Sauron's will, though certainly influenced by him, and they have different reactions.
They sure do. And some do, just like we saw on the Pelennor, right? They're proud, and so they stand to get ready to fight. And I'm reminded of this passage. After Éomer and Aragorn are reunited on the battlefield, we read, "Hard fighting and long labor they had still, for the Southrons were bold men and grim and fierce in despair. And the Easterlings were strong and war-hardened and asked for no quarter. So I think that's what we see, like we talked about, just the hatred of men, how much they despise Gondor. They don't need a lot of Sauron's guidance here. I mean, it's helpful, but, yeah.
Right. But they must also have courage, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because they keep going.
Bold men and grim, fierce in despair, that could easily be describing Éomer's men.
Right.
And not just these Southrons, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, the story is told by the victors, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Now, the majority, or at least plurality, run away to the east.
Uh-huh.
A few throw down their weapons and surrender, asking for mercy. Now, we've got to remember, Sauron is a liar.
Yeah.
So I can't help wondering if Sauron lied to his men the way Saruman did as it regards the good people. If you recall that in The Road to Isengard, we read that Erkenbrand puts the captive hillmen to work and he tells them they'll have to swear never to pass the fords of Isen armed and they'll be free.
Yeah.
And then we read that the men of Dunland were amazed, for Saruman had told them that the men of Rohan were cruel and burned their captives alive.
Well, there's you're talking earlier about men needing more of a reward-based system. Fight for me and you won't be burned alive is a pretty powerful reward. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the lie he told, but the whole idea of Sauron manipulating and lying to the men as opposed to just dominating their wills like he does with the orcs, it makes me think back to that moment when Sam encounters the dead Southron after that failed ambush in Ithilien. The text says, he wondered what the man's name was and where he came from, and if he was really evil of heart, or what lies or threats had led him on the long march from his home, and if he would not really rather have stayed there in peace. I'm coming back actually to some of the things you talked about with these men. Like Sauron's not interacting with all of them individually. He interacts with the leaders, with the people that run the southern nations. So yeah, he maybe bribes and cajoles the leaders, you do this and we'll give you more land. But the men are maybe being lied to by their leaders, right? So they're being told lies, threats, whatever it is that gets them to come and be a part of this fight. Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you think that, if you get captured, you're going to be burned alive because that's how the Gondorians roll, you're going to fight pretty hard.
Yeah. I'd rather die on the battlefield than go through that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Wow.
Okay.
This is amazing stuff. I love this chapter. And I got to tell you, it's so easy to just skip from the amazing destruction of the ring at the end of Mount Doom to the coronation of the king and to forget all about this incredible chapter. But please don't, folks. This is great stuff. And Sara, I'm going to have you pick up a little bit after I left off.
Okie dokie. Then Gandalf, leaving all such matters of battle and command to Aragorn and the other lords, stood upon the hilltop and called, and down to him came the great eagle, Gwaihir the Windlord, and stood before him. Twice you have borne me, Gwaihir my friend, said Gandalf. Thrice shall pay for all if you are willing. You will not find me a burden much greater than when you bore me from Zirak-Zigil, where my old life burned away. I would bear you, answered Gwaihir, whither you will, even were you made of stone. Then come, and let your brother go with us, and some other of your folk who is most swift, for we have need of speed greater than any wind, outmatching the wings of the Nazgul. The north wind blows, but we shall outfly it, said Gwaihir, and he lifted up Gandalf and sped away south, and with him went Landroval, and Meneldor, young and swift, and they passed over Udun and Gorgoroth, and saw all the land in ruin and tumult beneath them, and before them Mount Doom blazing, pouring out its fire. I am glad that you are here with me, said Frodo, here at the end of all things, Sam. Yes, I'm with you, master, said Sam, laying Frodo's wounded hand gently to his breast. And you're with me, and the journey's finished. But after coming all that way, I don't want to give up yet. It's not like me, somehow, if you understand. Maybe not, Sam, said Frodo. But it's like things are in the world. Hopes fail. An end comes. We have only a little time to wait now. We're lost in ruin and downfall, and there's no escape. Well, master, we could at least go further from this dangerous place here, from this crack of doom, if that's its name. Now couldn't we? Come, Mr. Frodo, let's go down the path at any rate.
Please, can we just get away from this spot? I mean, really, Sam has a point, and I'm glad he does, as we'll discover when we get to the next reading. Would have been bad to stay there. Let's go back to the beginning of that passage. Now that the captains of the West have things under control here at the Morannon, Gandalf has an appointment he needs to keep. So he calls for a cab, an eagle, and Gwaihir shows up. And now I'm picturing Gwaihir driving a black cab around the streets of London.
Gwaihir, the Uber driver?
Yeah, that could work too. Hi, I'm Gwaihir. I'm your Uber driver.
Please leave a tip.
You better.
So Gandalf references the 2 other times that Gwaihir has carried him and identifies one of those times as the moment when he carried his resurrected body away from Ziraxigil after his slaying of the Balrog and subsequent death.
That's right.
And that bit from the text says, I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high place and broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. Then darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time, and I wandered far on roads that I will not tell. Naked I was sent back, for a brief time, until my task is done. And naked I lay upon the mountain top. There I lay staring upward, while the stars wheeled over, and each day was as long as a life age of the earth. Faint to my ears came the gathered rumour of all lands, the springing and the dying, the song and the weeping, and the slow everlasting groan of overburdened stone. And so at the last Gwaihir the Windlord found me again, and he took me up and bore me away.
Man, that is such a passage. I mean, I know I'm supposed to move on and read about the other time that he's referencing here, but I just love Gandalf's description there. That who talks like that? But it's so beautiful. Broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin. I mean, just
gorgeous language.
I love this.
Yeah,
so good. But yeah, here's the thing. That means the other time that Gandalf is referring to here must be when he was rescued from the top of Orthanc, where Gwaihir is also named. So it was that when summer waned, there came a night of moon, and Gwaihir the Windlord, swiftest of the great eagles, came unlooked for to Orthanc, and he found me standing on the pinnacle. Then I spoke to him, and he bore me away, before Saruman was aware. I was far from Isengard, ere the wolves and orcs issued from the gate to pursue me.
Can I just say that your pronunciation of Gandalf's words are chef's kiss?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Gandalf is my favorite voice to do, no doubt about it. It's so much fun.
I can tell. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I won't even attempt to do that because my voice will not go that low.
That's okay. That's why you're here to do Eowyn next chapter. Ah.
Oh, bliss. Okay. I'll take that. Okay.
It's not the only reason you're here. Let me be clear. Before anybody thinks, oh, we just brought Sara on to do Eowyn's voice. No, I brought Sara on because she's amazing and I can't wait to hear all the things she has to say. Okay.
Oh, just, all the flattery. Keep going. No, really. Keep going.
No, please stop. Keep going. Yeah.
Keep going. Okay. We definitely digress there.
We do. That's all right. It's permitted. It's actually, I think, mandatory.
I believe so. Was it not in the contract?
I think so.
It was in the contract.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Okay, so interestingly, that means that Gwaihir's ascendancy to the lordship of the Eagles has only happened in the 78 years since the event of The Hobbit took place.
Yeah.
In that book, the Great Eagle, or the Lord of the Eagles, is unnamed, and some have assumed it to be Gwaihir, but that cannot be the case.
Right.
Douglas A. Anderson says as much in his annotated Hobbit, though Robert Foster in his Complete Guide to Middle-earth believes them to be one and the same.
Now, here's the thing. Obviously, if twice you have borne me, thrice shall pay for all, then clearly Gwaihir cannot be the Lord of the Eagles referenced in The Hobbit. But I have to say, and this is kind of a controversial take, I'm not actually entirely certain that Gwaihir is the Lord of the Eagles here. Yes, his name means Windlord, and we see him a lot, right? Gwaihir's the one who carries him all the time. Gwaihir's the eagle. But Meneldor's name means King of the Sky, and he's not king of anything. So I don't think we can go off the name Windlord. And here's where I'm going with this, okay? I'm not sure the text is convincing me that he's the Lord of the Eagles right now, because Gandalf explains about his rescue from Orthanc that the Eagles of the Mountains saw many things, and they sent a messenger to bring these tidings to me. Gwaihir's the one who showed up. Why would the king be the messenger? And how could the Eagles send their king? I mean, we shall send me I don't know. And here's the thing. He's never described as the King of the Eagles. The clincher for me, though, was when I was reading this, just as I was preparing this the other day, this sort of ambiguous paragraph that you read early on. There came Gwaihir the Windlord, that's his name, and Landroval his brother, greatest of all the eagles of the north, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor. Now, previously, I'd read that to mean that both Gwaihir and Landroval his brother, greatest of all the eagles of the north, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor, etc. But what if those descriptors are meant to apply only to Landroval? Grammatically, that certainly could be the case here. Again, he doesn't ever say that Gwaihir is the king, only that he's a messenger and that he's the swiftest. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm not convinced that he is, and that it might actually be Landroval. What do you think?
Well, the bit that convinces me the most is the fact that a messenger was sent.
Yeah.
And it was Gwaihir. Because a messenger was sent, somebody sent a messenger.
Correct.
And as you say, the king is not going to send himself. That doesn't make any sense at all.
The text wouldn't say that. The text would say the king chose to go himself, instead of sending a messenger.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's the bit that I would really focus in on. I mean, when you look at that ambiguous paragraph that you cited there.
And boy, it is ambiguous. I never thought about it until I read it. Wait a minute. Is he talking about both of them or just Landroval? Oh.
Right. Yeah. Because you could read it either way. Because the way in which that sentence is structured with the commas in the place that they are, you could read it either as Gwaihir and Landroval, and they're both greatest of all the eagles of the north.
Right.
But I've always kind of thought it was, and Landroval his brother, greatest of all the eagles of the north, right?
That's how I'm reading it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way I've always thought about it. And maybe we don't know that much about Landroval because he's the king.
Right. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. But Gwaihir, who's here, there, and everywhere, why would the king be doing that?
Yeah. Why would the king be the one who's running around doing all the jobs, right?
Yeah. And he's already got a title. He's Gwaihir the Windlord.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Landroval doesn't have a title.
Yeah. Gwaihir is Mr. Speedy.
Yeah, he is. He is the fastest one. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like the Hermes of the eagles, you're the fastest one on wings, off you pop. He's the messenger.
I was going to try to make an herb joke with Hermes, but I can't, so...
I'm so pleased you didn't.
And folks, let the record show that the look of disappointment Sara just flashed me was something incredible, I have to say.
Yeah, I think my lip actually curled.
I think it might have.
I think it might have done. That was just totally beyond my control.
Oh, man. Good stuff.
Okay, well, anyway.
Yeah.
Gwaihir is more than willing to bear him. And so Gandalf asks him to bring his brother Landroval and any other speedy eagles, and let's go. Gandalf has need of haste, as he might say to some other intelligent beast of burden.
I feel the need for speed. Now, Gwaihir talks a big talk, but the fact is he backs it up. We're going to outfly the wind, man. We are fast. So he, Landroval, and now we get his name, Meneldor, head south over the Valley of Udun and the plains of Gorgoroth towards Mount Doom itself.
Right, and we see why Gandalf is in a hurry as we transition back to Frodo and Sam here. Picking up literally where we left off, last chapter we ended with Frodo saying, I am glad you are here with me, here at the end of all things, Sam. And Tolkien uses that precise dialogue to take us right to that moment.
I love it. I mean, what he's doing really is he's taking this interlacing that we've seen since the beginning of the Two Towers, and he's bringing the timelines together now. There's no more back and forth. There's no more leapfrogging, no more skipping time. This is happening as Gandalf and the Eagles are flying towards them. And it's masterful the way he's done that here.
Right. And Sam, in this moment, he's reassuring Frodo that he is with him. Yeah. They're together and that the journey is over. But notably, he refuses to concede to Frodo's claim that it's the end of all things. In fact, he explicitly says he's not ready to give up yet. It's not like him.
That's right.
And that's right. It's not at all like Sam.
No, he's the one who's always held on to hope much longer than Frodo has. In fairness, probably because he's not carrying the wheel of fire around his neck. Frodo, on the other hand, understandably, given what he's gone through, is a bit more fatalistic here, given all that he's endured. Let's talk about that a little bit. How much of this is Frodo's quote unquote realistic outlook versus Sam's arguably sometimes naive outlook? And then how much of this is more of like a hope despair argument? I don't know.
We have to remember that the ring has just been destroyed. And Frodo has also had his finger chopped off, by the way.
Well, there is the missing digit. Yeah, that's true.
But the ring has been destroyed. And the ring has really done a number on Frodo.
It has. That's true.
And there's not a lot of Frodo's sense of self left. I don't think it's any wonder that in this point he just kind of wants to lie down and die. I mean, apart from the fact that it's been a terrible burden to carry, the ring has insinuated itself into Frodo's sense of self.
100%
and now
it has, yeah.
The ring is gone. And there must be such a void left inside Frodo. In fact, we know that's kind of what happens because even though he may mostly physically heal, he never mentally heals. Obviously, you'll get to that bit. That's why he has to leave Middle-earth, spoilers. But to me, I don't think this is so much realist versus naive. I think here Sam is he's being kind of practical. Yeah, I don't really, I'm not dead yet. You're not dead yet, but here is not a good place to be.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we are going to die, but can we extend that time a little bit? Can we, since we're here together, since we're hanging out and we're both still alive, let's move away from this particular place, right?
Right. And Frodo explains that this is just the way things are. Hopes fail, ends come. On the plus side, we're not going to have to wait too long, right?
I mean, look, on its face, this is true. I mean, hopes do fail sometimes. Ends always come. This is I don't know. I don't know how to, this is a question that doesn't have an answer. Okay. Let's be real upfront about that. When is it okay though in Tolkien to believe that hopes have failed and an end has come rather than looking to hope? I think back to Gandalf talking about how despair is for those who see the end beyond all doubt.
Right.
When does it become despair versus an absence of hope? We've talked about that before too, that whole idea of it being like not a 1 to 10 scale, but a -10 to a +10. And there is a 0 where you're hopeless, but you're not despairing. When is it okay in Tolkien to say, well, I guess we're out of hope and we're out of ends. Like nothing, we don't have a choice here.
I don't think it's ever okay. Yeah. I don't think he ever says that's okay. I mean, we've got Denethor to look at as an example of what happens when you just embrace despair instead of looking to hope. Because in the end, Denethor's failure to me is much greater than Frodo's.
Oh, much greater. 100 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Frodo's failure was a failure by design. Tolkien knew from the very beginning of the very earliest drafts, even when this was bungo, that he wasn't going to be able to throw the ring into the fire.
Right.
Because that was the whole point. Like nobody could. Anybody of more power would have succumbed sooner to the temptation to take the ring, and anybody weaker wouldn't have even gotten this far. They would have been defeated by whatever outside forces are involved. So Frodo did better than anybody else, but nobody could have ever gotten the ring. Denethor, on the other hand, the guy abandoned all of his duties, all of his responsibilities, all of his obligations. Yeah.
And he dies by suicide.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, being sensitive here, because obviously we're now looking at this through a 21st century lens and not through the eyes of a Edwardian man who was a very devout Catholic.
Yeah.
But for Tolkien, suicide, I think, is an indication of Denethor's failure.
I think that's why Denethor is described as sort of parallel with the heathen kings of old in that section, right?
Yes.
It's to take him out of that sort of virtuous pagan viewpoint, right? I mean, this is sort of the pre-Christian world. There is that's why there's no religion in the world. But very much like the Beowulf poem, which is a pre-Christian legend being written down by a Christian era monk, we're sort of talking about this virtuous pagan. And Denethor, now he's being put into this mold of a heathen king of old. And I think you're right. There's definitely an indication there of disapproval on Tolkien's part. You are not ever allowed to give into that despair because, like Gandalf says, how is it possible for you to, or like what he says implies, how can you see the end beyond all doubt?
Right. Because if, Denethor could have had Faramir, his son, he could have kept Minas Tirith and Gondor. He could have done the right thing. And led his people. You know, what we have there is, of course, this comparison between Denethor and Theoden. All right. Yeah. Theoden almost falls into despair, but doesn't.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't. If he's going to die, he's going to embrace that. But he
100%.
is going to go out with flags flying and his sword flashing.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. And that's the thing with Theoden. We start with him at the very bottom of his despair.
Yes.
And we see him come out of it. And with Denethor, we see him already on the downslope, but nowhere near the bottom.
Yeah.
And it is a very, very sad, not really parallel, but to see those two stories, you know, come along at the same time.
Right. So to answer your question, I honestly think that in Tolkien, it's never okay to believe that.
Yeah.
But here for Frodo, we can understand why.
Oh, we certainly can.
Yeah.
And even just on a practical basis, we can understand why.
Yeah.
It takes a literal eucatastrophe to save Frodo and Sam here. It takes really a deus ex machina in many ways. The thing that Tolkien has said, the reason I don't use the eagles is because they're a very dangerous machine. I mean, this is not, if we rely on the eagles, that's why you could never have the eagles take the ring to Mordor, to answer that question. Mm-hmm. It's too powerful a story element. You have to reserve them for these times where only they can do the thing.
Right. And also, the Eagles of Manwë are not your taxi service.
Darn right they're not. We'll get to that. So Sam, you know, definitely isn't going to concede that hopes fail and ends come, but he does know better than to argue. He doesn't try to fight back. He doesn't try to logic his way out of this, or Sam emotion his way out of this. Mm-hmm. Instead, he just suggests, as we've pointed out, that they make their final moments last a bit longer by getting away from this volcanic vent and go down the path. And Frodo's willing to do that, even if it is just to humor Sam.
Right. And so they do. Going back down the spiral road that you and Matt climbed with them a couple of weeks ago, all the way to the foot of the mountain. And of course, it's a good thing they left the Sammathnaur, because the cone of the volcano is blown open right there as lava flows down the east side of the mountain.
Indeed. Kudos to Sam, because otherwise the eagles are picking up their ashen remains. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Crispy critters.
Oh, no. All right. Well, I will pick up right after that, right after the fiery vomit, which it is a shame that we had to skip phrases because I actually like that phrase a lot. Frodo and Sam could go no further. Their last strength of mind and body was swiftly ebbing. They had reached a low ashen hill piled at the mountain's foot, but from it there was no more escape. It was an island now, not long to endure amid the torment of Aradruin. All about it the earth gaped, and from deep rifts and pits smoke and fumes leaped up. Behind them the mountain was convulsed. Great rents opened in its side. Slow rivers of fire came down the long slopes towards them. Soon they would be engulfed. A rain of hot ash was falling. They stood now, and Sam, still holding his master's hand, caressed it. He sighed. "What a tale we have been in, Mr. Frodo, haven't we?" he said. "I wish I could hear it told. Do you think they'll say, 'Now comes the story of Nine-Fingered Frodo and the Ring of Doom'? And then everyone will hush like we did when in Rivendell they told us the tale of Baron One-Hand and the Great Jewel. I wish I could hear it. And I wonder how it will go on after our part." But even while he spoke so, to keep fear away until the very last, his eyes still strayed north into the eye of the wind, to where the sky far off was clear, as the cold blast, rising to a gale, drove back the darkness and the ruin of the clouds. And so it was that Gwaihir saw them with his keen, far-seeing eyes, as down the wild wind he came, and daring the great peril of the skies, he circled in the air. 2 small dark figures, forlorn, hand in hand upon a little hill, while the world shook under them, and gasped, and rivers of fire drew near. And even as he espied them and came swooping down, he saw them fall, worn out or choked with fumes and heat, or stricken down by despair at last, hiding their eyes from death. Side by side they lay, and down swept Gwaihir, and down came Landroval and Meneldor the Swift, and in a dream, not knowing what fate had befallen them, the wanderers were lifted up and borne far away out of the darkness and the fire.
Oh, what a moment.
Oh, man, Sam.
Oh,
break my heart, Sam. Oh,
I know.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So good.
Okay, pull myself together.
Yeah, I know. Oh, this part of the book has a lot of those pull myself together moments.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much emotion in this chapter. You know, you read it and your heart just feels full the whole way through. You've got everything from, you know, the eagles are coming and the Sauron's end has come and the I'm glad you're here with me at the end of all things through to they get swept up by the eagles. And I mean, honestly, my heart feels full to bursting.
And we're just beginning. There's so much more.
I
mean, the emotion we'll get when they actually get to the Field of Cormallen. Oh,
right.
Oh, man. I'll barely be able to stand it.
Yeah. I mean, this chapter's called the Field of Cormallen. We haven't got there yet.
No, we haven't. I think we barely get there at the end of this episode.
Indeed. Okay, so back to Frodo and Sam, because having come this far, they can go no further.
Right.
It's not just that their physical and volitional strength are spent, although they most assuredly are.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's that they've reached an ash hill at the bottom of the mountain and there's no escape. It's become an island surrounded by chasms and rifts and smoke and fumes.
And the lava is rolling down the mountain towards them. And I want to take a minute to kind of go back to one of the things that Matt and I talked about a couple of episodes ago, where we broke down the different types of volcanoes. And we talked through some of the things that Karen Wynne Fonstad mentioned in her atlas, but then we also pulled in some more science. The way that this lava flow is described, the slow rivers of fire, it strongly suggests an eruption type that's known as Strombolian, and that's named after the island of Stromboli, which is known as the lighthouse of the Mediterranean because of its eruptions. Hawaiian eruptions, which I started thinking of first, they typically have more fluid lava, more watery or more runny lava as opposed to thick, flowing, slow-moving lava. They have the fire fountains and things like that. And that type of eruption is more often associated with the huge but very shallow-sloped shield volcanoes like Mauna Loa. The more violent eruptions than Strombolian, the ones further up the chart, like Vulcanian and Subplinian and Plinian eruptions, these are characterized more by huge ash columns, big blocks and bombs, and pyroclastic flows.
Okay, so you might remember that concept from late in the first season of Amazon's The Rings of Power, when Mount Doom experienced a phreatomagmatic eruption that led to a pyroclastic flow. That's a high-speed current of hot gases and volcanic matter racing along the ground. Now, that's very much not what's happening to Frodo and Sam, which is just as well. Yeah,
I was going to say, if there was a pyroclastic flow, this show is over for Frodo and Sam right now. Thankfully, it's not. Instead, we have that Strombolian flow of slow lava. So amateur science, listen over. The clock is ticking. The lava is coming down and they will be killed. There's no way off this little island. And now we've also got hot ash falling around them as well. So let's just make this really pleasant. Yeah.
Yes. They're standing now with Sam still holding Frodo's hand, caressing it gently. We see Sam's love and admiration for Frodo come out with so much of these really small but very tangible kindnesses that he shows towards him.
So many of these. It's so sweet. And even with that, though, Sam seems to finally be coming to grips with the fact that, this may all be coming to an end, right? I mean, he talks about the story they've been in, and then immediately, and then again afterwards. So twice he says that he wishes he could hear it told. I think that's where I start to hear him finally acknowledging that this is over. I'm not going to get to hear it. I wish I could hear it. And what he wants to hear is the story of Nine-Fingered Frodo and the Ring of Doom. And he even compares it to the tale of Baron Erchamion and the Silmaril. I love that.
And isn't that typical of Sam that he's not in the story as far as he's concerned? He wants to hear about Frodo and what he does.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. He wouldn't even be upset by the Of the Rings of Power and the Third Age reference about how Frodo and his servant, Sam doesn't even get named. He's just Frodo and his servant went to Mount Doom. Yeah.
Sam erasure.
And Sam would not actually have a problem with it. That's the sort of sad irony. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Okay, so he keeps facing north, away from the volcano into the rising wind. We're back with the wind. A wind so strong it's driving back the darkness.
Another Manwë moment right there.
Another Manwë moment. It's in that clearing air of that north wind that Gwaihir first sees them as he circles.
I love it. They're still standing hand in hand as the lava approaches and as the earth is shaking. Nothing is going to stop Sam from loving and serving Frodo. And as Gwaihir descends, the hobbits finally fall. Now, the text speculates for us, right? It doesn't tell us exactly why, but it suggests that it could be fatigue, it could be the volcanic gases or heat, or it could just possibly be despair as death draws closer. I actually don't think it's that. I'm going to chalk it up to a combination of fatigue and volcanic gases. But whatever the case may be, all three eagles are sweeping down now. You've got Gwaihir bearing Gandalf, so Landroval and Meneldur each grab themselves a clawful of hobbit and carry them out of the darkness and the fire. Man.
I agree with you. I don't think it's dropping from despair. I think it's just, they're done.
Exhaustion. Total exhaustion. Like we can't even stand anymore. Could also be the earthquake. I mean, it's hard to stand in an earthquake, speaking as a Californian. There are times you're like, this is not good.
Yeah, they're on the side of a volcano that's probably moving around a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sam's going to wake up eventually, and when he does, it's going to be a lovely thing. And Sara, I want you to read that for us, if you would.
Okie dokie. When Sam awoke, he found that he was lying on some soft bed, but over him gently swayed wide beechen boughs, and through their young leaves sunlight glimmered, green and gold. All the air was full of a sweet mingled scent. He remembered that smell, the fragrance of Ithilien. Bless me, he mused, how long have I been asleep? For the scent had borne him back to the day when he had lit his little fire under the sunny bank, and for the moment all else between was out of waking memory. He stretched and drew a deep breath. Why, what a dream I've had, he muttered. I am glad to wake. He sat up, and then he saw that Frodo was lying beside him and slept peacefully, one hand behind his head and the other resting upon the coverlet. It was the right hand, and the third finger was missing. Full memory flooded back, and Sam cried aloud, It wasn't a dream! Then where are we? And a voice spoke softly behind him, In the land of Ithilien, and in the keeping of the king, and he awaits you. With that, Gandalf stood before him, robed in white, his beard now gleaming like pure snow in the twinkling of the leafy sunlight. Well, Master Samwise, how do you feel? He said. But Sam lay back and stared with open mouth, and for a moment, between bewilderment and great joy, he could not answer. At last he gasped, Gandalf? I thought you were dead. But then I thought I was dead myself. Is everything sad going to come untrue? What's happened to the world? A great shadow has departed, said Gandalf, and then he laughed, and the sound was like music, or like water in a parched land. And as he listened, the thought came to Sam that he had not heard laughter, the pure sound of merriment, for days upon days without count. It fell upon his ears like the echo of all the joys he had ever known. But he himself burst into tears. Then, as a sweet rain will pass down a wind of spring, and the sun will shine out the clearer, his tears ceased, and his laughter welled up, and laughing, he sprang from his bed.
Remember when we talked about the emotion in this chapter?
Right.
That paragraph alone. I mean, we'll get to it, but wow, that is so moving.
Is
and
everything
so
sad going to come untrue?
I know, my heart, Sam.
Oh, Sam, my heart.
I can't take it. It's and just the. Oh, we'll get there. All right, let's go back to the beginning of the passage. We shift now to Sam waking up, unsure of where he is. Right? I mean, he's in a bed, which is odd. He's in a nice soft bed for the first time in who knows how long. I mean, certainly since the window on the west, at the very least. quite possibly really the last time he's been in a comfortable soft bed might all the way be in Lothlorien.
Mm-hmm.
He's outside, which is a little odd, under the boughs of a beech tree, and there's sunlight glimmering through the leaves. Sunlight, which he hasn't really seen for a while either.
No, because there wasn't much of that in Mordor, right?
No, there wasn't.
And the smell.
Oh.
The smell transports him to Ithilien, back to March 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Some 2 weeks or so before the last day Sam remembers.
Right.
I mean, the smell is the most evocative of all the senses.
It is. It
It's the
immediately
one that brings back
transports you,
memory.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And so not surprisingly, he figures all the things he and Frodo experienced since then were part of a huge dream, or like a nightmare, frankly.
Well, right. What was in those conies?
That fragrance. Yeah, the fragrance takes him back to the day he lit a fire to stew a couple of conies.
That's right.
With potatoes.
Potatoes.
Keep your nasty chips.
That's right. Yeah. See, I could never. Gollum is wrong a lot. He's really wrong there. Keep your nasty. I mean, of course, I'm going to keep my. You're totally wrong to not think that chips are the best invention. But okay, we're going to digress if we keep going down that road. So Sam wakes a bit more, right? And he stretches. What a dream. He sees Frodo next to him, sleeping with his injured hand, missing a finger, right? Where did it go? Who took his finger? He's resting on the covers, and that's when he realizes, of course, this wasn't a dream. It all happened. Where are we? But Sam being Sam, he doesn't think that question, right? This isn't the text telling us, and Sam wondered to himself where they were. Sam doesn't do that. He speaks it aloud. Oh, and I'm glad he does.
And then he's answered by a voice he must have imagined he'd never hear again, right? The voice of Gandalf.
Yes.
Gandalf the White, though, as the text reminds us, with a clear description of his new to Sam appearance, because the last time Sam saw him, he was Gandalf the Grey, and
Gandalf
looked very, very
the Grey
different.
falling.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And he tells Sam softly that he is in Ithilien. So Sam was right about one thing.
Yes, he was.
In Ithilien, in the keeping of the king, who's actually waiting for him.
And then it's interesting because Gandalf, being Gandalf, doesn't really wait for Sam to take that in. He immediately asks him how he feels. And Sam, who always wears his feelings on his sleeve, I mean, he is the emotional heart of the story, he reacts the same way that I'm sure we're meant to imagine ourselves reacting, right? I mean, he's sort of the everyman of the story, jaw dropped, stuck somewhere between surprise and happiness. I don't know what to say. I don't have any words, And Sam expresses his quite reasonable shock at seeing Gandalf, and then gives that wonderful question, that beautifully naive question, and yet the one we all want to ask, but we know we can't because we know what the answer is. Is everything sad going to come untrue?
Oh,
my
how
heart.
I wish that was so.
My
poor
heart,
Sam. Yeah, I mean, he thought Gandalf was dead, and he's alive. He thought he and Frodo were dead, and they're alive. So I suppose it's not an entirely unreasonable question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, Gandalf's powerful magic, right? Galadriel's powerful magic. Sam's kind of a simple-minded guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he finishes by asking Gandalf the thing we would ask. What happened?
Exactly. Fill me in. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on here? But he asks it in such a Sam way. What's happened to the world?
Yes. I love that. That is so Sam. And that's when we get that paragraph, right? I think this is genuinely one of the most emotionally evocative palate cleansers in all of Tolkien and maybe even all of literature. It is so stunning. Yes, Gandalf starts by delivering the news, a great shadow has departed. And that is great news, but the rest of this paragraph just hits you right in the chest.
Oh, right. I love the description here of Gandalf. His laughter was like music or water in a parched land, the latter simile being so apt given where Sam has been for the last week, or rather the last week that he remembers. As we'll find out shortly, he's been asleep for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a nap and a half.
Isn't it? I could use one of those, but...
Oh, tell me about it. And of course, his heart has been so parched for laughter that he realizes he hasn't heard genuine merriment in an incredibly long time.
Yeah. I mean, at least, again, as far back as probably the window on the west would have been the last time he would have heard, a bunch of guys getting together and telling stories and laughing. I can't imagine there was any merriment since. And look how Sam takes that sound in. And I love this phrase, like the echo of all the joys he had ever known.
Oh.
Even now, and this is like the fourth or fifth time that I've read this just in preparation for the episode, how can you read this and not start weeping yourself like Sam does? It is so emotionally potent.
Right.
And Sam, like we said, the emotional core of the story to begin with, overwhelmed, just bursts into tears, but only for a moment, right? And for the better, because this metaphor of the spring rain and the clear sun, that fits Sam's emotional response as his laughter overcomes his tears and he jumps up from his bed. It's a Sam moment, but it's also a warm human moment. I love it.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. And I think this is one of the reasons why this is actually a really important chapter, because yes, we've had all that action at the Black Gate and Sam and Frodo at the Sammath Now and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But actually, there's so much emotion in this chapter that, you're still actually up on the heights as a reader, right? Okay, so didn't want to skip a single word of this chapter, but fair use.
Yeah, we did.
So Sam answers Gandalf's question about how he feels in the bit that we passed over. And as is often the case, Sam lacks the words for it initially, but he's not short of images here, as he says exactly what he feels like. Spring after winter, sun on leaves, and like all the trumpets and harps and songs he'd ever heard.
The trumpets and harps and songs.
Wonderful.
It's so wonderful. I love it. And honestly, it brings to mind this sort of overwhelming emotion, Tolkien's description of the eucatastrophe, which is fitting because this is the moment of the eucatastrophe. We'll find out next episode. Tolkien himself views this chapter, when the hobbits are praised for what they've accomplished, as being the eucatastrophe, as being the eucatastrophic heart of the tale. And so it makes me think of Tolkien's own description of that. He says that the constellation of fairy stories, the joy of the happy ending, or more correctly, of the good catastrophe, the sudden joyous turn, for there is no true end to any fairy tale. This joy, which is one of the things which fairy stories can produce supremely well, is not essentially escapist nor fugitive. In its fairy tale or otherworld setting, it is a sudden and miraculous grace, never to be counted on to recur. It does not deny the existence of discatastrophe, of sorrow and failure. The possibility of these is necessary to the joy of deliverance. It denies, in the face of much evidence, if you will, universal final defeat, and insofar is Evangelium, giving a fleeting glimpse of joy beyond the walls of the world, poignant as grief. That last bit, this fleeting glimpse of joy, and that the joy itself is poignant as grief, that almost encapsulates what Sam seems to be feeling here, that combination of things, the tears and the laughter. Oh, man.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, you said it. Sam is the emotional heart of this story.
Yeah.
He is the one that bridges for us as the reader from us to the text, so that we enter those emotions via Sam a lot of the time, right? Because Sam does reveal all of his emotions. He doesn't keep anything in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Don't ask Sam to keep a secret.
No. And don't ask Sam to play poker, because he's going to reveal everything on his face, on his sleeve.
Take him for everything he's got.
Exactly. So he's showing so much emotion here, but he's feeling overwhelming joy, relief, awe. I mean, what words can we put to what he's feeling here? Can we actually pin it down?
I don't know that we can. Right? I think the ones you mentioned are all certainly feelings that he's experiencing. There's a relief to still be alive, and that more importantly, Frodo is still alive. Surprise, right, in seeing Gandalf alive. Maybe even surprise in being alive himself. The joy of seeing Gandalf, the joy of knowing Frodo's still around.
It's all overwhelming.
It is. Overwhelming, I think, would go before every emotion that he's feeling, whether it's overwhelming joy, overwhelming awe, overwhelming everything. This is more than one person can process.
How would you even begin to describe how you might feel in this moment?
Yeah.
When here's somebody you thought was dead, but he's alive, and he and Frodo, and he adores Frodo.
Yes, he does.
Are both there and safe, and everything seems to be done. I mean, okay, we'll talk about later about how,
Well,
you know,
sure.
he thinks everything sad is now come undone again, and it's
Oh.
not true. But here in this moment, how on earth can you possibly put into words all of those emotions that you would be feeling?
Yeah, I don't know that I could. I don't have the emotional intelligence to to try to define all of those things that I would be experiencing. And Sam, I think, does a better job than I would have done, you know, at drawing these pictures, these word pictures that are just beautiful and rich. You know, the spring after winter, the sun on the leaves, like trumpets and harps and all the songs I've ever heard. Sam has a way of expressing himself that, I guess because he has so much practice, because he doesn't keep anything in, he really does convey the heart of what he's experiencing. Yeah. But it is all over.
And he doesn't hold anything back, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. Sam completely lacks guile. He is completely guileless. He cannot, and this is why he would be a terrible poker player. He can't put forth something that's false. Right. He just is incapable of that. So when he's asked how he feels, he's going to tell you how he feels. And it's going to be all of it. He's going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because that's the only thing he's capable of doing.
Right. Yeah. It's just who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Oh, beautiful.
Well, we could stay talking about this like for hours, but do you want to pick up the next bit? Read the next bit for us.
I fell asleep again waiting for you, Sam, you sleepyhead. I was awake early this morning, and now it must be nearly noon. Noon, said Sam, trying to calculate. Noon of what day? The 14th of the new year, said Gandalf. Or, if you like, the 8th day of April in the Shire reckoning. But in Gondor, the new year will always now begin upon the 25th of March, when Sauron fell, and when you were brought out of the fire to the king. He has tended you, and now he awaits you. You shall eat and drink with him. When you are ready, I will lead you to him. The king? Said Sam. What king? And who is he? The king of Gondor and lord of the western lands, said Gandalf. And he has taken back all his ancient realm. He will ride soon to his crowning, but he waits for you. What shall we wear? Said Sam. For all he could see was the old and tattered clothes that they had journeyed in, lying folded on the ground beside their beds. The clothes that you wore on your way to Mordor, said Gandalf. Even the orc rags that you bore in the Black Land, Frodo, shall be preserved. No silks and linens, nor any armor or heraldry could be more honorable. But later I will find some other clothes, perhaps. Then he held out his hands to them, and they saw that one shone with light. What have you got there? Frodo cried. Can it be? Yes, I have brought your two treasures. They were found on Sam when you were rescued, the Lady Galadriel's gifts. Your glass, Frodo, and your box, Sam. You will be glad to have these safe again. Yes, they will. Oh, my goodness, yes.
Yes. Again, it's just so wonderful with Sam here. Like, king? What king? Who's king?
King? Wait a minute. How long have I been asleep? Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about this actually is it parallels that scene in Imladris in Rivendell, where Frodo wakes up and says, "What day is it?" And Gandalf tells him. And here Sam is like, "What day is it?" And Gandalf tells him.
At 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Except that it's noon, but yeah. I love that.
So again, skipping a bit before you started reading.
Yeah.
Sam is buoyantly happy, radiantly joyful, but it doesn't take long before his usual concern comes to the fore. How is Frodo?
That's right.
Yeah. It's always his main concern.
Yeah.
He notes the missing finger, but expresses a hope that the missing digit is all that's wrong.
Well, sadly, by the end of the story, we'll learn that's far from the case for Frodo. The cruel time that Sam observes that he's had will have done lasting damage to him. But for now, at least, Frodo is indeed all right? I mean, he'd just fallen asleep waiting for Sam, it being the middle of the day now, and Sam's sleeping in.
Yeah, okay, it's noon, but what day?
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is where Sam learns that a lot of time has passed since he was holding Frodo's hand on the Ashen Hill at the base of Mount Doom, waiting for the end to come.
That's right.
Gandalf explains that it's the 14th day of the year, but that Sam would understand that better as April 8th.
Or 8th April. or how about 8 April, right? Is that how you say it? I just want to make sure it's like Herb. You got to put the dates before the month.
It would be 8th of April.
That's what I thought. I'm just giving you a hard time. So, folks, remember, all the months in the Shire calendar have 30 days, and the ring was destroyed on the 25th of March. They fell asleep on the 25th as they were waiting to be picked up by the not taxi service. And that means they were out for 2 full weeks.
Like I said, that's some nap.
That's a coma. I mean, can we just be medically honest here? This was not a nap.
Right.
This was not even sleeping. This was genuinely trouble. Yeah.
But while it is the 8th of April, it's also day 14 of Fourth Age 1.
Yes.
Which makes for some interesting and challenging calendar reconciliations.
Doesn't it? Wouldn't it have been so much easier if they destroyed the ring on January 1st? I mean, it's
right.
Just,
I mean, that's just inconvenient.
Seriously. I mean, maybe even April 1st would be nice, just to make it the first of the month. Instead, it's got to be the 25th. But let's talk about the significance of the fact that the new year starts on March 25th now. In The Road to Middle-earth, Shippey at one point is talking about what we talked about earlier, the Beowulf poem and the virtuous pagans, and we'll come back to that again actually next week as well, when he makes this very interesting observation. Anglo-Saxon belief, and in European popular tradition both before and after that, 25th of March is the date of the crucifixion, also of the Annunciation, 9 months before Christmas, also of the last day of creation. For this, he cites Byrhtferth's manual, written by a monk around the year 1000.
And Shippey goes on to say that by mentioning the date, Tolkien was presenting his eucatastrophe as a forerunner or type of the greater one of Christian myth. It is possible to doubt whether this was a good idea.
I could hear Tom saying that. It is
possible to doubt whether this was a good idea.
Yeah.
Almost no one notices the significance of 25th of March or of the company setting out from Rivendell on the 25th of December.
I know. I remember when we pointed that, I was like, that was the first time I noticed that. So later, after referencing a couple of other things, at least 2 of which we'll talk about next episode, Shippey concludes that Tolkien did right normally to avoid such illusions, to keep, like the author of Beowulf, to a middle path between the Bible and pagan myth.
Hammond and Scull also point out that for a number of centuries in England, 25th of March, marking the Feast of the Annunciation, was the beginning of the year, and that it remained so for legal and official purposes until the reform of the calendar in 1751.
That is wild. I also, and I know this is possibly reading too much into things, I wonder whether there might be any significance to the April 8th. After all, they could have woken up a week after a few days of sleep rather than 2 weeks. We'll see that Tolkien had many, many different dates in mind as he goes through the drafting process. Why April 8th? In researching the personal significance of that date to Tolkien, I discovered that it was the birth date of Vincent Trout, a very good friend of his, a classmate of Tolkien's at King Edward's, a member of the TCBS who passed away from an illness at the age of 18. And look, it could be totally coincidental, but I thought it was at least worth mentioning for old Vincent Trout. Yeah.
Yeah. In Sauron Defeated, Christopher Tolkien reveals that they originally woke up on the 28th of March, just 3 days later, then moved it again to the last day of March in the Shire Reckoning before eventually landing on 8th of April. Christopher writes, I do not know precisely what considerations impelled my father so greatly to prolong the time during which Sam and Frodo lay asleep.
And that's why I'm like, well, it could be Vincent Trout, because we don't know what considerations impelled his father. And if he says this is why, well, then I'd say, okay, then I don't have, that's not a possibility.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
I mean, what are the chances that Tolkien mentioned Vincent Trout to his son? I mean, Trout would have died so long
before.
ago.
I mean, he was 18 when he passed away, and it was very, very long time ago. So, yeah.
And Sam is told that for these 2 weeks, he and Frodo have been tended by this mysterious king who's now waiting for them, which leads to that obvious question. King? What king?
How did he become king? I didn't vote for him. Gandalf expounds but does not identify the king. You could just see Gandalf like smirking.
Yes.
Like, wait till you see. But, he's not telling him that even. He does point out the coronation is coming soon. And that leads Sam, ever practical, to ask how they should dress. This is a king, after all.
Right. And Gandalf tells them that the clothes they wore on their quest are honoured. This symbolic gesture, it's lovely and has remained in the text since early drafts. In the first edition, it was published as the clothes that you journeyed in, no silks and linens, etc. The change from journeyed in to wore on your way to Mordor, and the extra bit about Frodo's orc rags that he wore being preserved only showed up in the second edition, which was published in 1965.
That's right. And then we get the return of the priceless gifts of Galadriel, the vial and Sam's box. And, the vial, shall we say, it's already done its job, right?
Right.
We don't see it again after this. It doesn't do anything, but the box is so important. And, without that gift, the Shire would not be saved. And it just comes back to Sam holding on to hope when he held on to that box. You said it earlier, he never gives up. He just never loses hope. And though we can understand Frodo doing exactly that, it's just not who Sam is. And Sam held on to this even when it made no logical sense to do so. But it's really neat because, for Frodo, the whole reason why he undertook the quest was to save the Shire. So if Sam had given up hope and gotten rid of the box, the Shire would have been saved. And for Frodo, the quest would have failed really in his mind, because for him, it was all about saving the Shire.
I set out to save the Shire, Sam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But not for me. And we'll get to that. Oh, man.
Oh,
my heart.
No, I can't take any more.
I know, I can't. Let's wait till next week. As Gandalf approached with the vial and Sam's box, though, it appears that he left something a bit bulkier behind. I think it's Barlaman's bag. Sarah, what does Barlaman have for us tonight?
Okay, well, Sabet in Iran writes in with an interesting question. Why are men not considered for membership on the White Council? If the Edain have Faramir's wizardly air and his bright soul, then I guess we might consider them wise enough. And he goes on to point out that the Astari know that the Dominion of Men is coming. As Maiar, they'd be familiar with the third theme of Iluvatar. He points out that including men would open the door to a whole lot more possibilities. We may speculate that if the men, stewards of Gondor, were considered as members of the council, the topic of the Palantiri would come up, so at the very least Gandalf might be alerted sooner to the pitfalls of Denethor using the Palantir.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Well, first of all, my thoughts are that 99.99% of the men that have ever been did not have Faramir's wizardly air or his bright soul.
Exactly. He is
Faramir
different, right?
is such an example, right? He is the exemplar for sure. But I think the real reason we're looking at is just their mortality. When we look at the timeline of the council meetings, the White Council first met around Second Age 1701. So at that point, it would have been the kings of men rather than the stewards of Gondor, if they had been chosen for the White Council. Now, it was at that meeting that they decided that Imladris would become the stronghold of the elves in Eriador rather than Eregion. Good idea. Mm-hmm. And it seems likely that the White Council of the Third Age echoed this Second Age White Council, so probably not the same exact membership. Well, we know it's not the same membership because the Astari were not there yet. Now, in Unfinished Tales, the history of Galadriel and Celeborn, we read that at this time, the first council was held, and this was right after driving out Sauron from Eregion, and that was in 1701, according to Appendix B. So again, going back to the history of Galadriel and Celeborn in Note 10, the first council actually got amended to the first White Council. So Tolkien looked back and decided, let's call this the White Council. So then in Third Age 2063, that's when Gandalf entered Dol Guldur, and that, daunted the concealed Sauron into running away. Bravely brave Sir Sauron, he boldly ran away. And that began the Watchful Peace, and that was before the formation of the council, but the feat was still attributed to them. Robert Foster notices that discrepancy, by the way, in the Complete Guide to Middle-earth. Now, in Third Age 2463, so this is 400 years later, following Sauron's return to Dol Guldur and the end of the Watchful Peace in 2460, Galadriel summoned the first meeting of this new Third Age White Council. And this is what we read in the Mirror of Galadriel. I it was who first summoned the White Council, and if my designs had not gone amiss, it would have been governed by Gandalf the Grey, and then, mayhap, things would have gone otherwise.
Right. Now, I agree with Alan, what he says about why there are no humans at the White Council. It's got to do with their mortality. It must do. Especially if you look very carefully, you will note that there's actually only 4 known meetings of the White Council.
Yeah.
And there's a heck of a big distance between
gap.
them all, right?
Oh my goodness. My great grandfather was at the last council meeting.
Yes, but we've lost the minutes. So can you please bring us up to speed?
Oh no. Oh no, that's terrible. Yeah.
So there's that first meeting that you mentioned in 2463. The next one is not until 2851.
Almost 400 years later.
Exactly. And the council meets at Rivendell there. And you find that in Unfinished Tales, The Hunt for the Ring, the section that's concerning Gandalf, Saruman and the Shire.
Right.
And in this meeting, Gandalf urges an attack on Dol Guldur following his discovery in the previous year that its master was the returned Dark Lord.
Right.
A bit more detail on that in the Silmarillion of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. If you read The Quest of Erebor, you know that what Gandalf was wanting to do at this point was simultaneously prevent a union between Sauron and Smaug.
Oh, yeah. That'd be bad.
That's, of course, why he wants to get rid of Smaug. And Saruman overrules him. Because, again, if you look in Appendix B, the Third Age, we know that in secret he's begun to covet Sauron's power for himself.
That's what he does, that's Saruman. Yeah. So then we move not quite 100 years later to Third Age 2941. That's in that meeting, Gandalf says that although the One Ring was lost, its existence alone allowed Sauron to still manifest, right? So the enemy, who now had all 9 rings and 3 of the 7, was obviously going to be gaining in power. And so Gandalf once again says, we need to attack Dol Guldur. Finally, Saruman concedes to the assault. He had been worried. This wasn't like, oh, you're right, Sauron's too powerful, blah, blah, blah. He was worried about Sauron finding the ring possibly in the Anduin. You know, he was searching in that area. He was like, oh, that's where I think it is. I don't want Sauron able to search there. So yeah, let's drive Sauron away. Right.
Now, interestingly, actually, it's only 10 years later that we have the last meeting of
there
the
you
White
go.
Council.
So that's a perfect opportunity to have been brought men on board.
Because following Sauron's open declaration in 2951, again, find that in Appendix B, there's a discussion in this meeting on the Rings of Power. Saruman again repeats his claim that the One Ring's been lost in the Anduin and into the sea. And we're told about this, by the way, in the Council of Elrond.
Yeah.
Back in a book, all the way back in Book 2 of the Fellowship of the Ring. Do you remember that far back, Helen?
That's hard to believe. I mean, that's 4 years in podcast time.
Right. And do you know that's one of my favorite chapters in the entire The Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Anyway, moving on, because I digress. According to Of the Rings of Power, Saruman makes this claim in the second meeting, and then in Appendix B, this argument is said in the last meeting. Yeah. And in the Council of Elrond, this claim was repeated what he had said to us before. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
But the point is that there are only 4 meetings of the White Council that we know of, and that at least 2 of them are so far apart, there's just no way a human could have attended it.
It's such an interesting gap. You have a 400-year gap, then a 100-year gap, and then a 10-year gap.
Yeah, it's almost like the danger is growing and you need meetings more often.
Yeah, that's true. We are sort of reaching the moment. So it's less about men aren't worthy of being on the council, and it's really impractical. Who do we send the invite to? Because the last guy, well, he's been dead and his kids have been dead for, hundreds of years. It just, I think really it's just a practical matter. But yeah, I mean, if Faramir's on the council, that's not a bad idea, especially as the Dominion of Men comes into play and elves start to step back. But, at this point, it's the collected wisdom, right? You can talk about Faramir being wise all you want, and he was very, very wise for a man. But compared to Galadriel, Elrond, Gandalf, I mean,
that's it.
Gandalf's a Maya. He's got wisdom stretching all the way back to the beginning of time itself. Galadriel and Elrond have been around for thousands of years. There's no comparison. No man, no matter how wise he is, could ever live up to that sort of wisdom.
Absolutely not. I think that really the role of the mortal races would be, they might pass on some information to a member of the White Council, perhaps, but really, I don't see how they would have the chops, if you like, to sit alongside.
how could they be anything but short-sighted? And I don't mean that as in a negative sense, like to actually insult them and say, oh, you're so short-sighted. By nature, by their mortal nature, they're going to be short-sighted. The elves and Gandalf are thinking long-term, generations and generations, centuries ahead. I don't think that men were going to be capable of that kind of consideration when they're making decisions, So they're going to make short-term decisions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Good stuff. Good question, though. Really good question. And folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast. But it's just started my time with the Shield Maiden of Rohan as my co-host.
Yay!
She'll be with me, not at the end of all things one imagines, but at least for the next 2 chapters. So join us again next week as Frodo and Sam are reunited with some old friends.
And Sam gets to hear that song he's been hoping to hear.
Yes, he does.
In fact, I'm hoping that Alan will make up all the lyrics to it and sing it to us in the next episode.
Keep on hoping.
Okay, folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP. Editor Jordan Rannells, and particularly for his patience in editing out all our gaffes.
Yes.
Barliman Becca Davis, one of my favourite people in the world. Social media manager Casey Hilsey. Event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and of course website guru Phil Dean.
Also the security guard in Numenor who marched Sauron and Galadriel off the stage. Yeah.
Absolutely. Very important.
Indeed. Folks, please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including chapter-specific artwork from Megan.
And please take a moment to visit our library page, because the Prancing Pony podcast has always been about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you will find a link for it in our library. We get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed, we do. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, and Joshua in Massachusetts.
And there's also Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, John in Japan, excellent alliteration, Olivia in London, Jackson in Tennessee, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Bailey in Texas, and Kevin in Massachusetts. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, what you'd wear to a coronation to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. I'm thinking the orc rags. I really don't care. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
But please be sure to still email the question to Barliman, though. Even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Howell var. Farewell, friends.